I'll introduce myself in a moment. I'm going to start by talking about you. And I guess the first question, the only question is, why are you here in this room? I'm not sure if you know it, but I hope I do. So chances are you're in the middle of a project, and maybe you're just starting out, maybe you're halfway, maybe you've gone live and you have a small audience or a fair-sized audience. If you're lucky, you have a big audience, and if you're really good and really lucky, you have many projects, they're all live, they have huge audiences. This is the biggest problem in the games industry, at least at the indie level. We all go into it because we love it, and that will probably kill us. Probably quickly, sometimes slowly. The problem is we're constantly dependent on the next game being a success. And we really want to get out of this cycle. I know I did when I was game developing. And if you're an investor and you're looking at a game developer, one of the first things you're looking at is, am I going to get stuck in this cycle every 6 to 24 months of thinking, will the next game work? And that's why you're in this room. You're in this room because you want an IP, because IPs last. So the legal definition is that it's an artistic work that can be protected. So there are elements in your game that you can own. Not the technology, but other things. The characters, the look, the name, and so on. And if you develop that IP successfully, then ultimately it means that it's more than a game. It may be centered on your game, but those characters can come again in movies, in TV series, in merchandise, and so on. So in that way, what an IP can do is it can get you out of that life and death cycle that keeps repeating and get you to something smoother that can be grown over time. And for an investor, that sounds like heaven. Because investing in something that goes like that isn't really investing, it's gambling. So of course we know IPs and we've had them for a while. There are some quite successful IPs out there. Some of them are based on movies, some of them are based on comic books. We're even seeing some now begin to come that are based on games. Tomb Raider, of course, is an early example. Angry Birds has become an IP lately, and so on. So what characterizes them is that they have mass market appeal. They've broken out of the niche. They have stories and characters that work across media, so it doesn't just work in one. And they're differentiated and they're protectable. So they don't look like anything else. In fact, they look so unique that you can actually send a lawyer after somebody who makes something that looks like what you made. And that's important if you're an investor. So the benefits as a game developer of having an IP in the short term is that you will get more player loyalty because the players know what they're looking for. And whether you're moving on to the next game or the next installment or you're just clicking on an ad, just recognizing this thing because it's unique gives you that. It also enables you to position yourself in the market. You can do more effective marketing. And of course, you can start doing long-term planning. Again, for an investor, meeting a game developer who is actually able to plan long-term because they're building an audience, they're building an IP, they're working across multiple game releases, is a completely different proposition than investing in a game developer who only can see to the next game launch. In the medium term, it means your company and your products have longer staying power in the market. And again, it comes back to that is what the investors are interested in. They're interested in seeing something that can build over time. And that, of course, means that when you're negotiating with your investors, maybe with the lawyer who was just here, you can value it higher because you're no longer just saying this might work and it might not work. No, you're saying we're moving into this space and we're going to stay there until we own it. We're going to build loyalty, we're going to learn what these players like, we're going to learn how this particular IP and this particular gameplay type interact with each other, and we're going to keep on learning. So your investment, sir, is not a short-term investment, it's a long-term investment. And ultimately, if you choose to go all the way, it means you can become an entertainment brand. So you are no longer a game, you are now an entertainment brand where the game is one source of revenue and there are other sources of revenue as well. The big question, of course, is how the hell do you do that? So I'm just going to briefly say a little bit about me, and then I'm going to go into these 3 steps that I think is pretty much the way to do it. So my own background is home computers. I grew up in Somerset in England, moved back to Denmark where I was born. played home computers, Commodore 64s, role-playing games and so on. Then I fell in love with movies. Then I became an entrepreneur and made games for learning, advertising, and entertainment. I made 35 of them. And then I decided to innovate and spent 4 years of my life making an art game called Cloud Chamber, which won an awful lot of prizes and didn't make much money, which is what art games do. Now, I'm a consulting executive with DDM agency across Europe, working with games. And then I'm head of IP development at Nordisk Film Games. You're probably wondering what the hell that is. Well, Nordisk Film Games is part of Egmont, which is a Nordic media conglomerate with 6,000 employees. We're the most Oscar-nominated movie studio outside the US in the last 10 years. And we just started investing in games. So over the last 24 months, we've invested in these 6 companies. I think we spent $140 billion. So my job is to take these IPs and develop them, make them into brands, and take them to Hollywood. So that's me. So how do we go about making your IPs into global entertainment brands? Well, the place to start is to lay a balanced foundation. As I said, passion is the #1 killer of game developers, so make sure that you have a balanced startup, that there is business as well as creativity at founder level. If it's all creativity, you're in trouble. If it's all business, you may make it, but you're probably in trouble as well. The next thing you need, and this comes straight from the passion, is that you do need the sincerity of craftsmanship. You do need something that is inherently true and original. I'm in no way saying we can live without that. All the great IPs come from an honest creative impulse. The place where it gets a little bit dangerous is when that's the only thing you will allow into your company. The next thing you need is at least one memorable character. I'm sure there are IPs out there that are not based on characters, but most of them are centered on characters. Characters are what we remember, they're what we invest our emotions in, and they are really what the brands are all about. So Spider-Man is Peter Parker, Tomb Raider is Lara Croft, Shovel Knight is, well, Shovel Knight, and even Bloodborne, where you go in and make your own character and they all look different, everybody knows who that guy is. That is the Bloodborne character. So the characters are really central when you're beginning to build your IP. And that's really central because if you go 10 years down the line and you've got your successful game and you decide, now I want to make an IP because I've got 1 billion users, but I made it about triangles and squares, I'm sorry, you can't reverse engineer it at that point. So get those characters in there at the start and have that discussion about whether this character is cool enough to be on a t-shirt, because one day it's going to be really important. The next thing you're going to need is a world that's built to last. And this is basically the thing that the worlds really do travel from media to media. So we know it from Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Star Wars and so on. But it's also important that many stories can happen in that world. You have to be able to tell more games in that world, or more TV series, or more books, or whatever. Then there's the business. And even though we really want to, don't delay the business development. Now, indies all over the world, whether they're film indies or game indies or book indies, are proudly delaying the business development until later, because it's just not why I'm here. But you can't. It's going to kill you if you don't. You have to get it in there from the start, especially these days where the market is changing all the time. So start by having a long-term goal. Where do you want to be in 10 years? Is this thing that you're inventing right now helping you to get there, or is it only helping you the first 6 months? Have a strategy to get there, to that goal. It's not enough to have a goal, you have to have a way to get there. I know the strategy is going to change all the time. Every 6 months you're going to have to change your strategy because it was wrong. But as you move along, it will get better, and eventually you'll have the right one. You also need a plan, which is, how am I going to do the strategy? Then you need to separate the creative from the commercial. Saying, I am both a businessman and a creative guy, yeah, it does work, one time in a million, but try finding the other 999,999 for whom it did not work, and who didn't get in the papers. If you're really creative, find a business guy. If you're a really good business, find a creative guy, or split it up further. And get the advertising in at founder level. Get the marketing in at founder level. Please don't go to an investor and say, we've got a finance guy and a creative guy and a tech guy. And the marketing is being done by the intern. Marketing is just as important as those others. I've heard that intern story a lot. And if you want an investor, don't make games in boxes. Don't make games that could be sold in boxes. I'm sorry, if you're an artist, this is going to hurt, but games that only can be sold once, they're vinyl records. Vinyl records are great for getting coffee at the local hipster store, but you're not going to make an IP unless you're so lucky it's not even funny. So even though it's a work of art, make sure it has repeated sales built into it. There's nothing saying that works of art shouldn't be able to be sold more than once. So we've laid a balanced foundation. It's done really well. It's a great DNA. Now we need to build the business. Now, coming from the investor angle right now, the main words are this: prove it works. Unless you have an angel investor or a rich uncle, you need to show that the audience wants this. Pitching us something that you think is going to be great and that our money is supposed to help you find an audience for, that's gambling. You need to show us that the audience likes this. Also, number one, you need to be able to build value even if it doesn't hit right out of the bat. So are you building an email list of your audience? Are you building an IP? Are you building a technology? What do we do if it doesn't hit? What is it that's in the company? There has to be something to own. The IP obviously is something to own. But there are other things you can own, such as the technology, the email list, and so on. Rebooting after each project. It's really cool. Every time I've done a game, I want to do something completely different. That's also cool if you're an artist. If you want to have a career, or if you want an investment, it's suicide. Because every time you reboot, you're throwing away everything you just learned. You're throwing away your understanding of the game mechanics, your understanding of this specific audience, knowing how to market to them, the community you just built, everything you're throwing out. For an investor, that's not funny. Test your assumptions. Yes, we know you think it's going to be good. Prove it. The founders should be interested in meeting the audience. The days when we just want to make a game, somebody else is going to handle the marketing, it's pretty much over. It may come back, but right now, there isn't very many publishers who can really handle a game that's always on and it's live. Because you don't need a feedback delay between what the audience wants and the things you need to change in your game. You don't need a publisher in the middle of that. You have to be in contact with your audience every day. And if your founders don't love meeting the audience, that's going to be tough. That's like having a theater and refusing to go on stage. It's not going to work. So, and you need to know your market. Again, the days when we could just hide in the cellar for 2 years, make a great game, and then throw it out, those days are gone. The market is changing too fast. You need to be in contact with them all the way through, and you need to be prototyping with the audience all the way through. Now, I know I'm talking about building IP, but that's what this is all about as well. Then, of course, there's one big one rule to combine them all, one green light. And if you have this, of course, you can pretty much throw everything else out. And it's that if you have a project that just keeps people's attention and spreads itself, nothing else matters. Then you've got a hit. But then you have to be able to prove that. You have to be able to show us the numbers where that's happening. And that counts whether you have an IP ambition or not. Finally, you have to stand out in the market as an IP. I think this goes for all games. You need to be recognizable. World War II games are tough. Medieval knight simulators are tough. There's a lot of them around. They all look the same. But it means that you have to get the marketing right. And there's been a lot of bullshit around in the marketing industry, and it's really tough to find good marketing people. It's really tough to find a good marketing agency, but they are out there. At Nordisk Film Games, we had Heroes and Generals, and their old marketing looked like this. It was all over the place, and it was World War II, and it was, you know, each thing looked different. You couldn't even see it was the same game. And really, when you have a good marketing manager, it's not that complicated. So you go in and you define what are the core values of the game and the company and the people who made it. You build the key visuals that reflect that and that will position it in the market differently from the competitors. And then you build those visuals. In this case, it ended up looking like this. So the logo is new, the branding is new, we have something specific. It's completely tied into the fact that this is 3 multiplayer factions fighting each other and so on. And that's it, almost. If you have all those things, you have your DNA, you've grown it, you can prove the numbers are there, you're positioning it in the market, you're pretty much ready to start trying to go for an entertainment brand. You don't have to. You can just stop there because now you've got a great game, it's positioned, it's got the numbers, that may be enough. But if you do want to have an IP and you do want to go all the way, then there's probably not that many ways other than going to TV or going to the movies. Because this is where the mainstream entertainment really takes off. And if you get a TV series made, and it's not as crazy as it sounds, you go from being a game to being an entertainment brand. And there's really just one big step there that's going to take some effort. And it's basically making a pitch document of 10 to 15 pages and then taking it to the agencies in Hollywood. It's not much more complicated than that. I was in Hollywood in November talking to 10 different agencies, and I have to tell you the timing is pretty good right now. These are quotes that I wrote down. This is me at Sony. The Sony Pictures Rainbow. They are looking for IPs. The market is becoming IP driven. And there really is a hunger in Hollywood and globally for IPs that already have audiences. And this is the reason. The reason is that right now, and for the next 2 to 5 years, these guys, plus Disney, who's coming in right now, are all trying to establish the entertainment platforms of the future. And the most expensive thing they've got is making new content. Now, if you were a Netflix executive and you had the choice between making a new TV series that's completely original and nobody knows if it works, or making a good TV series based on a game IP with 10 to 20 million fans, I know which one I choose. And that's what we're hearing here. It's that these IPs that actually have built audiences that are differentiated in the market and that we've already seen the audiences like, they're super valuable and they're fighting for them. So that's it. The road to Hollywood. Thank you. We have time. My assistant over here, who's taller than me, says we have one question.
Make it a good one.
That's even better. We have no questions. Oh.
My question would be, how do you see the interview? You mentioned it's got to be mass market, but it seems to me, mentioned something like Star Wars. When that came out, that wasn't mass market. It was it would have been seen as a geeky thing, or something like, say, Games Workshop IP, which are huge, but are they? Is there a relationship between what makes something mass market, i.e. the success of it, and what the mass market will accept, or is it? Do you think it's always apparent it's mass market right at the start?
No, I guess the point is they become an IP when they hit the mass market. But, there's no formula, but everybody's going to be looking at it. Does it have the possibility to expand? But no, there's no easy way to guess it.